The sky was burning red with the fire of invasion. Humanity had been warned, but no one believed that the stars would bring death so quickly. When the enemy came, their ships blocked the sun itself, and their soldiers dropped from the heavens like steel shadows. The aliens called themselves the Krail. Tall, armored, and cruel, they believed humanity would surrender quietly. To them, Earth was nothing more than another weak planet, filled with soft creatures who had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. They thought mankind would bow, like all the other species they had conquered. They were wrong. On the first night of invasion, cities fell in silence. Buildings collapsed, power grids went dark, and millions were trapped under fire. The Krail marched through streets, dragging people out, scanning them, and locking them into cages. Humanity's armies fought back, but the Krail's technology was too strong. Their weapons burned through tanks, their shields bent every bullet. For every human soldier, 10 Krail warriors rose. But even as humanity bled, something ancient stirred. Hidden in deep military bunkers, far away from the news and the screams, there were projects no civilian ever knew about. Weapons that had been designed not for other nations, but for the impossible future, an enemy not of Earth. Most thought these were only myths. Stories whispered by soldiers who had seen things they were not allowed to speak about. The truth was buried in cages of steel and glass. In a base beneath the Rocky Mountains, alarms were ringing. Red lights spun across long corridors as soldiers ran, loading crates onto armored trucks. At the center of the base, a single reinforced chamber shook with low growls. Behind thick glass walls, massive shadows moved. Colonel Hayes stood with his hands pressed against the glass. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with a dangerous resolve. "They thought we would surrender," Hayes whispered. "But they don't know what we keep in the dark." Inside the chamber, beasts stirred. They were not natural. They were not animals found in forests or deserts. They were engineered, shaped from DNA and fury, built for only one purpose: war. Some looked like wolves, their bodies heavier, their jaws larger, teeth shining like knives. Others stood upright, humanoid but twisted, their muscles knotted under armored skin, eyes glowing with hunger. They were called the war beasts. The world did not know about them, because the world was never supposed to. They were experiments that crossed every line of morality. A mix of human will and animal power, turned into weapons. But now, humanity was out of time. The growls grew louder. One beast, larger than the others, pressed its claws against the glass. Its golden eyes locked on Hayes. The colonel turned to the scientists. "Release them." The head scientist shook his head in panic. "Sir, if we release them, we can't control them. They are not pets," Hayes interrupted sharply. "They're soldiers. And if Earth falls, then nothing matters. Open the cages." The order carried through the base. Guards turned keys, computers unlocked seals, and one by one, the chambers opened. The beasts stepped out. The ground shook under their weight. Chains rattled, alarms screamed, and soldiers stood frozen as the creatures walked into the open. One wolf-like beast sniffed the air, its growl rumbling deep in its chest. Another humanoid war beast let out a roar so powerful that dust fell from the ceiling. For a moment, the humans inside the base felt fear. These were monsters, born from nightmares. But then Hayes raised his voice, shouting above the chaos. "Listen to me. You were created for this moment. The enemy thinks humanity is weak. They think we will kneel. Prove them wrong. Prove to the stars that Earth fights back." The beasts growled, their eyes flashing. Something inside them understood. They were weapons, yes, but they were also part human. They could feel rage, loyalty, and purpose. And now, that purpose was war. Far above, in the sky, the Krail ships moved across the clouds. Their commanders laughed as their soldiers marched through broken human streets. They did not know what was coming. The first war beast howled, a sound so loud it echoed out of the mountain base and rolled across the land. Wolves in distant forests answered with their cries. Humanity was not finished. And for the first time, the Krail would know fear. The night was silent before the storm. In the ruined city of Denver, the streets were filled with fire and shadows. Alien patrols marched between fallen buildings, their metal boots striking the broken ground. Human prisoners were tied in groups, guarded by tall Krail warriors whose armor glowed faint blue. The air smelled of smoke and fear. The Krail commander looked at the burning horizon and laughed. "Another weak world," he said in his cold, metallic voice. "Another race to kneel." But then the sound came. It started as a low rumble, too deep to be thunder. The ground vibrated. Windows rattled in half-broken towers. The Krail froze, their antenna-like sensors twitching. Then the rumble grew into a roar, a sound that split the night. A howl. Not from any dog, not from any wolf. This was something larger, something built for war. The Krail soldiers turned their weapons toward the mountains. Their commander narrowed his eyes. "What is this?" The answer came crashing through the dark. From the smoke of the city's edge, shapes appeared. At first, they looked like shadows. Then, the firelight revealed them, giant beasts moving on all fours, their eyes glowing like burning coals. Behind them came towering figures, part human, part monster, their bodies armored by muscle and scars. The war beasts had arrived. The first to strike was a wolf beast twice the size of a horse. It leapt from the rubble and landed on a Krail soldier, crushing him under its weight. Its jaws snapped once, and metal armor split like paper. Blood sprayed across the street. The other Krail shouted, raising their rifles, but the beast was already moving, fast as lightning. A humanoid beast followed. Standing taller than any man, its claws glinted in the firelight. It slammed into a group of aliens, throwing one into a wall with such force that the stone cracked. Another alien tried to stab it with a plasma blade, but the beast caught the blade with its bare hand, snarled, and broke the alien's neck in one twist. The Krail were not weak. Their weapons blazed with energy, cutting through the night. Bolts of blue plasma struck the beasts, burning fur and flesh. One wolf beast stumbled, yelping in pain, but then it rose again, eyes glowing brighter, rage feeding its strength. It lunged forward, tearing through the Krail line like a storm of claws. From the rooftops, human survivors watched in disbelief. They had seen their soldiers fall, their tanks destroyed, their cities burned. But now, in the heart of despair, they saw monsters fighting for humanity. A young boy whispered to his mother, "What are they?" The mother's eyes were wide, reflecting the fire. "Our last hope," she whispered back. In the chaos, Colonel Hayes and his strike team entered the city. He stood inside an armored vehicle, watching the beasts unleash fury upon the invaders. His radio buzzed with panicked reports from the Krail. They were calling for reinforcements. Hayes allowed himself the smallest smile. "Good," he muttered. "Let them come." The largest of the beasts, the one with golden eyes, moved like a living weapon. It slammed into the Krail commander, claws flashing. The alien swung its glowing blade, but the beast caught his arm and crushed it in its grip. The commander roared in rage, speaking in his alien tongue, but his words were drowned by the beast's snarl. With a final strike, the monster tore the commander apart and let out a victorious howl that shook the city. The sound echoed across every street, across every ruin. Humans who had lost hope raised their heads. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt strength again. The Krail, however, felt something new, fear. As more beasts charged into the city, the aliens began to fall back. Their perfect formation broke, their soldiers retreating behind their armored machines. One of their warwalkers, a towering mech with glowing cannons, stepped forward to block the beasts. It fired a blast of plasma that turned a whole street into molten stone. The golden-eyed beast charged. The mech aimed again, but the beast was too fast. It leapt onto the machine's side, claws tearing through metal plating. Sparks exploded as it ripped wires and circuits apart. The mech staggered, firing wildly into the sky, before the beast tore open its core. The explosion lit the night like a new sun. The blast knocked humans and Krail alike off their feet. When the smoke cleared, the mech was nothing but burning wreckage, and the golden-eyed beast stood atop it, howling in triumph. Colonel Hayes watched with pride, but also with a shadow of worry. He knew what these creatures were capable of. They were weapons, yes, but weapons had no limits. Could they be controlled? Or would victory come at a cost too great? For now, he pushed the thought aside. Humanity needed victories. And tonight, they had won. The streets were filled with the bodies of Krail soldiers. The survivors fled into the dark, their ships rising back into the sky. The humans who had been captured broke free, running to the beasts, uncertain but grateful. Some of the creatures lowered their heads, allowing the humans to touch them, as if recognizing kinship in their fear and hope. The war was only beginning. And now, the galaxy would learn, humanity did not fall quietly. The victory in Denver spread like wildfire across the underground channels of humanity. Survivors whispered of giant beasts tearing through the Krail like shadows of vengeance. Soldiers who had lost all hope spoke of claws and fangs fighting beside them. For the first time since the skies had burned, people dared to believe. But victory never lasts long in war. High above Earth, in orbit, the Krail War Council gathered inside their massive flagship. The chamber glowed with cold blue light, filled with towering figures wrapped in dark armor. Their leader, Arch-Commander Varen, stood at the center, his eyes fixed on the holographic images of the battle. The recordings showed Krail warriors falling, mechs exploding, and the golden-eyed beast standing atop the ruins like a king of monsters. Silence filled the chamber. Then Varen spoke. "This is no ordinary enemy," he said. "Humans have unleashed something unnatural." One of his generals hissed. "Beasts. Animals. We will crush them." Varen turned slowly, his voice sharp as steel. "Did you see them bleed? Did you see them fall? No. They fought through our fire, tore through our weapons. These are not animals. These are weapons crafted by human hands." A murmur spread among the generals. The idea disturbed them. The Krail had conquered countless species across the stars. Most races begged for mercy, some tried to fight with primitive machines, but none had ever created monsters that could challenge the Krail on the ground. "They are desperate," another general said. "Desperation makes mistakes. We must capture one alive. Study it. Learn its origin." Varen nodded. "Yes. If they can make such creatures, then perhaps humanity is more dangerous than we believed." On Earth, in the hidden base beneath the mountains, Colonel Hayes watched as the beasts rested after battle. They lay in reinforced chambers, their bodies healing with unnatural speed. The golden-eyed beast, larger and stronger than the others, sat in silence, its gaze fixed on the colonel as though it understood more than it should. Dr. Mara, the lead scientist, stood beside Hayes. Her face was pale, her voice uneasy. "You know what they are, don't you?" she asked quietly. Hayes didn't answer. He only stared at the beast. Mara's voice trembled. "They're not just made from animal DNA. They carry human code, human instincts. They were meant to be controllable, but in truth, they think. They feel. That's why they fight with such fury." Hayes finally spoke, his tone low. "Good. That's why they will win." Mara shook her head. "You don't understand. If they realize what they are, if they discover how much human they carry, then they won't just fight the Krail. They might turn on us." Before Hayes could reply, alarms blared across the base. Red lights spun. Soldiers shouted through radios. "Incoming strike. Enemy ships breaking through the atmosphere." The Krail had returned. The ground shook as massive pods slammed into the mountains, splitting open to release waves of alien troops. The base shook with explosions as Krail forces stormed the defenses. Hayes shouted orders. "Release the beasts. Hold the line." The cages opened once more. War beasts charged into battle, claws and fangs ripping into alien steel. The mountain echoed with roars, plasma fire, and screams. But this time, the Krail fought differently. They came with nets of burning energy, cannons that fired restraints, and shields that glowed with strange power. They were not just trying to kill, they were trying to capture. One beast was caught in a glowing net, thrashing wildly as electricity crackled across its body. Another was pinned under heavy plasma chains. The humans tried to fight back, but the Krail were relentless. Then, the golden-eyed beast entered the battlefield. It tore through nets, crushed soldiers, and stood against the invaders like a living storm. The Krail surrounded it, weapons raised. The beast roared and leapt forward, but this time, the aliens were ready. A massive cannon fired a bolt of blue energy that struck the beast in the chest. The ground exploded beneath it, and the creature collapsed, stunned and chained. Hayes shouted in rage. "No! Don't let them take it." But it was too late. The Krail deployed a transport pod, dragging the golden-eyed beast inside. Engines roared as the pod lifted back toward the skies. The other beasts howled, thrashing harder, fighting with even greater fury, but the Krail had what they came for. Within minutes, their ships rose back into the clouds, carrying their prize. Silence fell over the battlefield. Smoke and bodies covered the ground. Humanity had survived, but the cost was heavy. One of their greatest weapons was gone, taken by the enemy. Hayes clenched his fists, his voice a whisper of anger. They think they've captured a beast. But what they've taken is something far more dangerous. Far above Earth, aboard the flagship, Arch-Commander Varen stood before the restrained golden-eyed beast. Its chains glowed, holding its massive body still. Yet its eyes burned with fire, never looking away from him. Varen leaned closer, studying it. "What are you, really?" The beast growled low, its eyes narrowing with something that was not just rage. It was something sharper. Something human. And Varen felt, for the first time, a chill of fear. The Krail flagship drifted in orbit, a giant shadow above the Earth. Inside its cold metallic halls, the golden-eyed beast lay chained within a chamber of glowing restraints. Blue energy crawled across its body, binding muscle and bone, forcing stillness. Alien scientists circled it, their armor glinting under the sterile lights. Their hands moved across consoles, scanning every detail of the creature's flesh and blood. One scientist hissed in disbelief. "Its cells heal faster than fire can burn. No creature in our empire has this ability." Another adjusted the screen, his voice uneasy. "And the code inside its DNA. It is not animal. Not fully. It carries human markers." The chamber fell silent. Arch-Commander Varen entered, his presence heavy, his eyes cold as steel. He walked toward the restrained beast, watching its chest rise and fall with slow, controlled breaths. Its golden eyes followed him with a gaze too sharp, too intelligent. "Human," Varen whispered, almost to himself. "So they forged you in their own image. A weapon born from their fear." The beast growled low, the chains rattling against its body. Varen turned to his scientists. "Unlock its mind. I want to know what it remembers." They obeyed. Needles of light pierced into the beast's skull, feeding waves of alien energy into its brain. Screens flickered, filling with images, memories. Not just of battles, but of something deeper. A child's laughter. A hand reaching through glass. Voices speaking its name. The scientists froze. This one, it remembers being human. Varen's eyes widened. "What did you say?" The beast snarled, its muscles straining against the restraints. Sparks flew as the chains groaned. Its eyes flared with something no animal should have, anger shaped by memory. "Impossible," one scientist whispered. "It should not remember. It should not think like this." But the golden-eyed beast thought. And it remembered. Far below, in the hidden base, Colonel Hayes stood before his soldiers. The battle had left them scarred and weary, but their eyes still burned with determination. The other beasts prowled restlessly in their chambers, their howls shaking the mountain walls. Dr. Mara approached Hayes, her face pale. They took the golden-eyed one. Do you understand what that means? Hayes nodded grimly. Yes. They will learn what it really is. Mara's voice dropped to a whisper. If they realize it carries human memory, human thought, they won't just see it as a weapon. They'll see it as proof. Proof that humanity can create life that defies their empire. Hayes clenched his jaw. Then we get it back. Before it's too late. On the flagship, the beast's body shook as alien energy dug into its mind. Memories crashed like storms. Memories not just of blood, but of life. Running through fields as a boy. The sound of rain on a rooftop. A mother's voice saying his name. Yes. A name. It growled louder, its voice rumbling with broken words. The Krail scientists stepped back in alarm. It speaks, one whispered. Chains snapped as the beast surged forward. The restraints glowed, but cracks of light burst across them. Sparks showered the floor. Arch-Commander Varen did not step back. He stood firm, his eyes locked on the creature. You are not human. You are a mistake. You belong to us now. The beast lifted its head, golden eyes burning like fire. Its voice, rough and broken, growled one word. No. With a roar that shook the ship, the beast broke its chains. Metal shattered, energy flared, alarms screamed across the flagship. The chamber doors slammed shut, but it was too late, the monster was free. It moved with terrifying speed, ripping through scientists and guards alike. Blood sprayed across the walls, sparks rained from broken consoles. The beast tore through steel, its roars echoing through the corridors of the flagship. The ship itself seemed to tremble. Varen watched, calm even as chaos erupted. His generals rushed to him, shouting, "We must destroy it before it reaches the core." But Varen only raised a hand. His cold eyes glinted. No. Let it run. Let us see how far it will go. For the first time, he wanted to know the true limit of this human creation. Back on Earth, Hayes received a message from one of his spies. A burst of static, then a voice trembling with urgency. "Colonel, the golden-eyed one has escaped. It is loose inside the enemy flagship." Hayes felt both hope and fear twist in his chest. Dr. Mara's eyes widened. If it destroys that ship, it could save us. But if it loses control, if it forgets what side it's on. Hayes cut her off, his tone firm. It remembers enough to hate them. And that is all we need. He looked out the window, where the night sky glowed faintly with alien fire. Somewhere up there, one of humanity's darkest creations had broken free. And the galaxy was about to feel its wrath. The Krail flagship groaned like a wounded beast as alarms screamed through its halls. Red lights spun across every corridor, shadows flickering over steel walls. Soldiers rushed through the ship in formation, their boots hammering against the floor, weapons glowing blue. But no order could silence the chaos. The golden-eyed beast was loose. It moved like lightning, claws slashing through armored warriors, jaws tearing apart weapons that burned with alien energy. The more they fired, the stronger it seemed to become. Plasma blasts scorched its skin, but wounds closed as fast as they opened. Its roar shook the decks, echoing across the massive ship. Every corner it turned, every wall it shattered, left trails of destruction. Sparks burst from broken consoles, flames licked the air, and bodies lay scattered behind it. Arch-Commander Varen stood on the command deck, watching the destruction on his holographic map. Each red marker represented a squad, and one by one, they blinked out. His generals shouted in panic. "It is unstoppable. Nothing can contain it." Varen's expression remained calm, though his voice cut like a blade. "Then you are seeing humanity for what it truly is." The beast tore into a squad of Krail soldiers, ripping their shields apart with brute force. Its golden eyes glowed brighter with every kill, but behind the rage, something else stirred. Memory. Flashes burned in its mind. Faces, laughter, warmth. The beast hesitated for a heartbeat, staring at its own bloodied claws. For just a moment, It remembered being more than this monster. A child. A man. Human. Then another squad fired at it, dragging it back into the storm of battle. On Earth, Colonel Hayes watched the skies through binoculars. Faint bursts of light flickered above the clouds, the flagship burning under the beast's rampage. A soldier ran to him, breathless. "Sir, reports say it has killed hundreds already. They can't stop it." Hayes lowered the binoculars, his jaw tight. "Good. Let them bleed. Every second it lives, humanity has a chance." But Dr. Mara stood nearby, her face pale. "Colonel, don't you see? If it remembers too much, if it realizes what it truly is, it may not stop with them. It may turn its fury on us." Hayes looked at her coldly. "If that happens, we'll deal with it. But right now, it is the sharpest blade we have." Inside the flagship, Varen finally moved. He strode into the corridors, his armored cloak dragging across the floor. His soldiers tried to follow, but he raised a hand. "No. This fight is mine." He walked straight into the path of the golden-eyed beast. The creature stood at the end of a long hall. Its chest rising with heavy breaths, its body smeared with blood. Sparks showered from broken pipes above. They stared at each other, predator and predator. "You are impressive," Varen said, his voice echoing through the hall. "But you are still only a creation. A tool." The beast growled, its eyes burning. It took a step forward, claws curling into fists. "Do you even know what you are?" Varen pressed, tilting his head. "You think you are a monster. But I see the truth. You are human. And humans are dangerous." The beast roared, the sound shaking the walls, and charged. Varen moved with inhuman speed, his blade flashing with blue fire. The clash shook the corridor. Metal screamed, sparks exploded, and for the first time, the beast met an opponent that did not fall in one strike. Varen fought like no Krail before. Every slash of his blade cut deep, every strike filled with alien precision. But the beast countered with raw fury, tearing through walls and hurling wreckage like weapons. The flagship shook with their battle, every deck trembling under their blows. On Earth, the other beasts grew restless in their cages. They paced, snarled, and clawed at the walls, their golden eyes flashing like stormfire. Soldiers grew uneasy, weapons trembling in their hands. Dr. Mara whispered, horrified. "It's happening. They feel it. The golden-eyed one is connected to them. If it awakens, they all will." Hayes stood firm, though his heart pounded. "Then let them awaken. Because when the enemy looks at Earth, they will not see prey. They will see monsters." Back aboard the flagship, the duel raged on. Varen slammed the beast into a wall, his blade piercing its side. The creature howled in pain, blood spilling across the floor. But then, it stopped struggling. Its eyes focused, sharp, human. It reached up, gripping the blade with one clawed hand. Its voice, broken but clear, growled words that froze even Varen. "I am not yours." With a surge of strength, it snapped the blade in half and hurled Varen across the hall. The commander slammed into steel, the wall denting under the impact. The beast roared, shaking the ship once more. Varen rose slowly, blood dripping from his lip. And for the first time in his long reign, he smiled. "Good," he whispered. "Now the war truly begins." The Krail flagship shook like a dying beast. Fire crawled through broken corridors, alarms howled across the decks, and smoke rose in choking clouds. The golden-eyed beast stood at the center of destruction, its chest heaving, blood dripping from wounds that refused to stay open. Across from it, Arch-Commander Varen rose from the wreckage, his armor cracked, his blade shattered, but his eyes still sharp with fury. The duel was not over. They clashed again, the beast striking with raw power, Varen countering with ruthless precision. Every impact thundered through the ship, tearing walls apart and collapsing ceilings. The beast hurled a steel beam at him, but Varen sliced it in two and drove a fist into the creature's ribs, cracking bone. The monster staggered but roared back, slamming him into the floor so hard the deck split. Blood stained the commander's mouth, but he laughed. Yes. This is why humanity cannot be allowed to survive. You are chaos wrapped in flesh. The beast's eyes glowed brighter, golden fire burning through the pain. It stepped forward, growling words through broken breath. We are survival. With a roar that shook the ship's core, it slammed both claws into the deck. The impact shattered steel and ruptured power lines. Sparks exploded, fire spread, and the flagship systems screamed warnings. On the command deck, Krail officers panicked as the ship's reactors began to overload. Critical breach, a technician cried. The core is unstable. The Beast and Varen fought on, even as the flagship itself started to die. On Earth, Colonel Hayes received the reports. The sky lit with distant flashes as the Krail flagship trembled in orbit. Soldiers stared upward, their faces glowing under the strange light. Dr. Mara rushed into the command room, clutching her tablet. Colonel, the flagship's reactor is failing. If it explodes in low orbit, the fire will rain down on us. Hayes clenched his fists. Then we'd better pray our monster knows when to leave. But behind his hard tone, worry gnawed at him. If the golden-eyed beast truly remembered its human past, would it save Earth, or would it burn everything in its fury? Back in the ship, Varen pressed forward. He struck the beast again and again, each blow fueled by sheer rage. The beast stumbled, bleeding, chains of smoke wrapping its body. But then, through the haze, it remembered again. A face. A voice. A single word. Son. The memory cut through the chaos like light. It wasn't just a beast. It wasn't only a weapon. Somewhere deep within, it was still human. And humanity was more than rage. It was survival. It was defiance. The beast's roar changed. Less animal. More human. It lunged at Varen, ripping the last fragments of armor from his body and hurling him into the burning wall. Flames curled around the commander as the beast loomed above him, claws raised for the final strike. But before it could finish him, the ship shuddered violently. The reactor core roared like a collapsing star. The flagship was seconds away from destruction. The beast looked upward, then back at Varen. Its golden eyes burned, not with hatred, but with something sharper. A promise. It turned and leapt through the flames. Varen lay broken, coughing blood, but his laughter followed the beast. Run, little monster. Run. We will meet again. The beast tore through corridors, smashing through sealed doors, sprinting as alarms wailed louder. The hangar bay opened ahead, rows of captured human shuttles and alien transports. It crashed into one, tearing free the controls, forcing its massive body inside. With a roar, it slammed its claw down on the console. Engines screamed to life. The shuttle blasted out of the flagship just as the reactor reached critical mass. From Earth, humanity looked up and saw the sky blaze. The Krail flagship, a giant shadow that had haunted their nights, erupted in a sun of fire. Pieces rained down like burning stars, scattering across the atmosphere. The ground shook, windows shattered, and the world watched as their enemy's greatest ship was destroyed. In the command base, soldiers erupted into cheers. Some cried, some roared, some fell to their knees in disbelief. Hayes only stared at the sky, whispering to himself, "Good. Make them fear us." Beside him, Dr. Mara pressed a hand over her mouth. She wasn't cheering. Her eyes were wide with terror. Because she understood something the others didn't. If the golden-eyed beast could remember, if it could choose, then it was no longer just a weapon. It was becoming something more. Something unpredictable. And now it was coming back to Earth. Far above, inside the stolen shuttle, the golden-eyed beast sat in silence. Blood dried across its skin, its chest rising with slow, steady breaths. Its golden eyes stared through the window at the planet below. Earth. Home. For the first time, the monster did not feel only rage. It felt something strange. Something painful. Something human. The shuttle burned through the clouds, heading toward the mountains. The war was far from over, but now, both humanity and the Krail would learn the same truth. The beasts of war were no longer just weapons. They were awakening. The mountains shook as the stolen shuttle tore through the night sky. Its hull burned from re-entry, flames streaking behind it like the tail of a dying star. Deep inside, the golden-eyed beast sat in silence, its claws resting against the shattered console. Its chest rose with slow, heavy breaths, and its eyes were no longer just those of a monster. They were human. At the underground base, alarms rang. Soldiers poured into the hangar, weapons ready, unsure if what was coming was friend or foe. Colonel Hayes stood at the front, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on the streak of fire descending from the heavens. Dr. Mara stood beside him, fear in her face. If it remembers, Colonel, if it truly knows what it is, can you control it? Hayes didn't answer. His hand clenched around his pistol, though he knew it would mean nothing if the creature turned on them. The shuttle crashed into the hangar, skidding across steel, sparks flying in every direction. Soldiers raised their rifles as smoke filled the chamber. And then, from the wreckage, it stepped out. The golden-eyed beast. Its body was torn and burned, but its wounds were already closing. Its gaze swept across the soldiers, then locked onto Hayes. The colonel's finger hovered near his trigger. The beast growled low, then spoke. Hayes. The word was broken, rough, but clear. The soldiers froze. Mara gasped. Hayes's heart slammed in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. You remember. The beast lowered its head. Memories burned inside it, labs, cages, voices calling it a name. A human name. It remembered fear, pain, and the fire of being remade. But most of all, it remembered what it had been before the claws and fangs. It was not only a weapon. It was one of them. All across the base, the other beasts began to stir. Their golden eyes glowed brighter, their howls shaking the steel walls. They clawed at their cages, not with blind rage but with purpose. They feel it, Mara whispered. They're awakening too. Hayes's radio buzzed. Reports from across the world poured in, sightings of beasts breaking free from hidden facilities, rising from the shadows where they had been locked away. The awakening was not contained. It was spreading. Hayes stared at the creature before him, the leader of them all, the golden-eyed one. Humanity had two choices now, chain them again, or unleash them fully. He lowered his pistol. Then fight with us, Hayes said firmly. Not as weapons. As soldiers. As humans. The beast's golden eyes burned, and for the first time, it nodded. Above the earth, the Krail fleet shifted uneasily. Their flagship was gone, their commander wounded, and now their prey was no longer weak. Every scout ship reported the same thing. Beasts rising, cities fighting back, humans refusing to kneel. On his throne of steel, Arch-Commander Varen nursed his wounds, staring at the stars with cold fury. His voice cut through the silence of the council chamber. This war has changed. Humanity has awakened something even they do not understand. But mark my words. I will break them. I will break their monsters. And when I do, this galaxy will know the Krail still rule. Yet behind his rage, a shadow of doubt lingered. He had looked into the eyes of the golden beast and seen something the Krail had never faced before. Not just fury. Not just strength. But defiance born from memory. On Earth, fires still burned in ruined cities. Survivors emerged from the rubble, guided by soldiers and beasts alike. For the first time, humanity was not only defending itself, it was striking back. The golden-eyed beast stood on the mountainside, staring at the horizon where alien ships glowed faintly against the stars. Its claws flexed, its breath steady, but its mind was sharp with memory. It was not just rage. It was resolve. Beside it, Colonel Hayes placed a hand on his radio, his voice steady. To every survivor, every fighter, every beast that still breathes, listen well. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not surrender. From this day forward, we fight not only for Earth, but for the stars themselves. The wind carried his words across the mountains. Soldiers cheered. Survivors raised their fists. And the beasts howled, their cries rolling across the land like thunder. The galaxy had expected humanity to fall quietly. Instead, they had unleashed the beasts of war. And the war was only beginning.